CA Bhaumik Goda, who is going to explain us various queries, and he is going through various provisions and ambiguities on the topic. I request you all to put your questions in the chat box. So we'll take it at the end of the seminar. Now I request Chintan to play the ICI motto.
Yeah.
Then there is no voice.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतम्
Thank you, Chintan. Now I request Chintan Rabia to introduce today's speaker.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul bhai. Today we have with us a very dynamic and young speaker among us, CA Bhaumik Goda. CA Bhaumik Goda is a partner at BGSS and Associate and is based in Mumbai. Bhaumik sir practices in the field of domestic and international taxation with specific emphasis on business restructuring, international taxation, FEMA and tax litigation. He is a regular speaker at various professional forums and has authored numerous articles and select books on the subject. With this brief introduction, I would like to welcome Bhaumik sir on behalf of Dadari CP Study Circle. Yeah, thank you, Rahul.
Yeah. Thank you, Chintan. Now I request Bhaumik sir to enlighten us on the topic.
Is the slide visible?
Yeah.
Let's see if I'm able to. Yeah, and it's moving, right?
Yeah.
All right. Jigar, Rahul, Chintan, thank you very much for inviting me. August members of the study circle, thank you for sparing your time. Friends, what we are going to discuss is a new set of provision which are likely to come into vogue on 1st October 2020. Now, TCS as a provision is exactly opposite to what TDS is, but having the intent which is same as TDS provisions are meant for. Now, what law somehow envisages is, and this is what memorandum also says, that there is certain categories of taxpayer who perhaps are not filing the return of income, so they want to deepen the tax net. Now, how do you deepen the tax net? They believe, let us find a new mechanism wherein for every sales which a seller makes, as a corollary, every purchase which a person purchases, if the value exceeds 50 lakhs of rupees, in that case, a very token amount, 0.075% would be deducted. Earlier it was 0.1, but one believes that this is a great concession which one got, which is 25%, and hence now the effective rate is 0.075% is what one will is what one will be required to deduct as far as TCS provisions are concerned. Let us look at some of the reasons why one should have this kind of provisions, and it is extremely essential because as we go through the provisions, and as rightly Chintan mentioned, that there are some ambiguities which are there. Again echoed by Rahul as well. Now, what did Supreme Court in Sannyasi Rao decision said? And this is a case where the constitutionality of 206C, which deals with TCS provisions, were under challenge. Court said, and understand, friends, that this is the first year where the scope of TCS provisions is widened. Earlier, TCS was levied on certain things like liquor, sales, scrap, etc. So the gamut, or certain kind of forest produce, so on and so forth. So the gamut or the scope of the provisions was very narrow and very restricted to certain cases of taxpayer. But from here, the scope will enlarge and virtually have within it gamut almost every taxpayer which is a decent size of business. Now, law says that the business, that is Supreme Court at the time of upholding the constitutionality, mentioned that the business of the above mentioned person existed only for a short period of time, a year or two. After the period of contract or agreement, it was impossible to trace them in many cases. Many of them were found to be dealing in Benami name, and hence there was a large scale evasion. Government found it difficult to collect taxes from such person, and therefore the constitutionality provision was upheld, and this is somewhere the reasons why the provisions of TCS was there. Now, friends, this was the court's observation in 1996. Now, when we see 1996 to the times where we are today, virtually more than 24 years plus. Now, in terms of the depth of technology which even department is adopting, one would question whether there is a need of this kind of provisions. When we go to the construct of the provision, understand that it only applies when a particular person, say Mr. A, buys from a particular seller, and only when his purchase in aggregate exceeds 50 lakhs of rupees. So if he is just a rudimentary guy who is just purchasing say 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 5 lakhs of rupees, TCS provision does not apply. Now, applying that provision further, this amount which would be collected would be reflected in his so-called 26 years, and that's where department believes or government believes that this is through which we will deepen the tax rate. Now, the fundamental question which I have is that if there are certain categories of taxpayer who a single purchase, that is not a cumulative purchase, that what law envisages is one purchase, one seller, that is the aggregate purchase is above 50 lakhs of rupees, but still they are not filing the return of income, or still they are not disclosing the income honestly, then to my mind there is a system failure. Putting onus on seller to comply with this TCS provision, one would be forced to ask time and again that at the end of the day, what is the thing which law desires to achieve? In my view, it is good thing to honor the honest. One should always honor the honest. But perhaps the need of the hour is to recognize the honest, to trust the honest. Now, if this is the way in which the law is proposed to be administered, one would only believe that there would be more and more compliance which a business would be stuck in. And what do we have? From 1st April, the law was originally proposed. Some representations was there, and then they deferred by 6 months. Pursuant to COVID, one also believed that perhaps the provisions would be pushed back, but one is not hearing anything from government. One expected that if you are not pulling back the provisions to say an next financial year or virtually abandoning them, you would come out with some kind of FAQ, but we don't have any FAQs. Therefore, what do we have? 15 days from now when law is proposed to be effective, and we are marked with certain issues concerned. Let us look at the construct of the provision. What way in which we can do is that I will take you through the provisions. If there are any questions and questions are hitting the heart, we will of course have a last few minutes to address Q&A. And I'm fairly certain we would have 20 such minutes to address certain Q&A questions. So either we take it at end, but if someone wants to ask as the presentation is ongoing, you may put it at chat box. The organizers who have the control, they may unmute them and then you can participate the way in which I am participating now. Now, what is the scope or what is the purview of this particular provisions? Now, it is applicable to any person who is seller. Now, any means anybody can be a seller. It can be a government, It can be individual, it can be firm, it can be company. You name and everybody who comes within the definition of a person and who is a seller is covered within the scope of this particular provision. Now, it is triggered when the sale consideration, when you receive a sale consideration in excess of 50 lakhs of rupees. What is the amount? Earlier it was envisaged 0.1%, but some COVID relief is given and some 0.075% is the new effective rate. Therefore, if the sale consideration which you receive from the buyer on an aggregate basis exceeds 50 lakhs of rupees, seller, in addition to recovering his normal sale consideration, in addition to recovering the GST which would be there, is also required to levy a TCS, collect this TCS and pay to government. CBDT is empowered with guidelines in order to ensure that any difficulty are there would be removed. One hopes certain FAQs would be released. These provisions are effective from 1st April 2020. Thereafter, just hold on, I'm trying to change some settings. Yeah. Thereafter, law envisages to define what this buyer is, to define what this seller is. Now, buyer is defined to mean any person who, just hold on, I want this setting to go, it's coming in this one. Yeah, this is good enough. Yeah. Now, law defines buyer to mean a person who purchases any goods, but they exclude certain things. Who are excluded? Central government, state government, embassy, consulate, trade representation, a local body under 1020, or a person importing the goods into India. Now, friends, these exemption categories are extremely important. On a case-to-case basis, there may be no exempt categories, but understand that if these categories are your buyers, then you need not collect TCS. Not only this, as part of your reporting of TCS in terms of the TCS return which you would be filing, you have to mention which was the category and what was the gross amount which was paid by them. And hence one will have to upfront identify whether these categories are exempt categories or not. Now, as one understands that most of the sales today in a decent sized organizations runs on a quick ERP basis. That is, either there are IT softwares or there are ERP or SAPs which are installed, which would take care of all this sales, invoicing, etc. Now, it's not as if that an organization has one sales team, one invoicing team, so on and so forth. If one considers organizations which has branches across all the state, almost all the things runs on an automated basis, and hence one requires system check whether my buyer is a central government, state government, or so on and so forth. Now, when we look at state government and central government, they mean the direct people, not agencies. So if there are any PSUs, etc., which are owned by any of this entity, they do not qualify for this exemption. If you are importing certain goods, it is to a certain extent easy to monitor that TCS provision in any case will not apply. Moreover, it's a headache of seller to begin with to comply with the TCS provision. Now, TCS provision applies irrespective of the user of goods. Now, therefore, even if the goods are used for manufacturing, certain exemptions of 206C deals with certain exemptions. But when it comes to 2061H dealing with sale of goods, law does not give any exemption. So, irrespective of the purpose of goods, whether you are buying for charity, whether you are buying for manufacturing, so on and so forth, law is very clear that TCS provision will be applicable. And hence, as we go through the construct, as we go through the implementation phase of this particular provision, one will have to be extremely clear whether my case is governed by TCS or my case is not governed by TCS. Law defines the category, that is the seller, because unlike TDS, TCS works exactly opposite. Here, a person who raises the invoice would be required in addition to collect this tax and pay to the exchequer. Law says that if the total sales, gross receipt or turnover from the business carried on by such seller exceeds 10 crore in the immediately preceding financial year. Therefore, for financial year which is ongoing 2021, you have to see whether those turnover from the business exceeds 10 crores or not. Let's take a case of some of the examples. Say a person who had 5 crores as a turnover is making 50 crores in FY 2021. To him, TCS provisions will not apply. Similarly, if there is a person whose turnover is 50 crores in the business, and I'm coming to the reference to business somewhere later, is 50 crores, but because of COVID, his expected turnover is 5 crores in this financial year 2021. To him, TCS provisions will be applicable. But when he moves to FY 21-22, he has to again see what is my turnover in the earlier year. And therefore, this is what one has to do. It's an arithmetic exercise. Each year one has to see whether TCS provisions are applicable to me or not. Friends, for the purpose of determining the sales, turnover, so on and so forth, one has to look this in the business. Therefore, I may be having certain service business, I may be having certain trade business. In that case, it is the aggregate turnover of the business which has to be seen, and not restrict yourself to the turnover to whom these TCS provisions are applicable. Even when I determine this particular turnover, one also needs to see that there are certain exports which I may be making. Now, friends, these exports are not subject matter of TCS. There is a clear case of exemption which is given. Even then, for the purpose of determining whether the provisions of TCS are applicable or not, I need to factor in that exports quantum as well to determine whether I am a seller, and for me, whether TCS provisions are applicable or not. Now, why this question? Now, because the responsibility is on seller. Now, if for any reason it does not collect, then the provisions are akin to TDS. You would be deemed to be an assessing default. You will be asked a question that if you have not collected, now please give me the TCS. That is, I will recover the base amount of tax. I will as well recover the interest amount as interest from the interest applicable to the TCS provisions as well. Now, credit mechanism has been given. That is section 206. Subsection 4. Rahul or Jigar, if you can just say if I'm audible in terms of speed, if things are fine or not. If you can just come in with the
Yes, Bhumik, you are absolutely fine.
the speed is okay, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, fine, thanks. Now, TCS provision, the credit mechanism of TCS provision is given in 206 subsection 4. Which says that amount collected and paid to the government of India shall be deemed to be the payment of tax on behalf of buyer, and credit shall be given to such person for the amount so collected. Rules have been promulgated, and this rules gave an indication that government is serious in implementation. These rules came in the month of July. So whatever hopes were there in terms of a total deferral doesn't seem to be live unless something happens in the next 14 days. Rule 37 to I2A says that credit of tax at source shall be given to the person from whose account tax is collected and paid to the central government for the assessment run relevant to the previous year in which such tax collection is made. Now understand, friend, that the mechanism of tax collection or the mechanism of credit has nothing to do with actual purchases, has nothing to do with the fact where you sold those goods. Therefore, even if those goods are appearing in the closing stock of the buyer, the moment seller collects it and moment seller pays that amount to the government, the requirement of credit mechanism is met, and therefore the buyer will be entitled to credit. It is a different thing that income which may arise to the buyer from this particular provision would be assessed in the subsequent year, and therefore one would expect some kind of minimal blockages which would be there as far as this TCS amount is concerned. Now what we do is, in the ensuing part of the presentation, we deal with each of the aspect of the provision, try to analyze the provisions in detail and move forward. Now, first is that TCS is applicable on sale of goods. Therefore, the first question for us for consideration is, what is then the meaning of goods? Now, goods is not defined under the Income Tax Act, neither it is defined under section 206C. But goods as a term has been a subject matter of significant debate, be it under the erstwhile Sales Tax Act, be it under Service Tax Act, be it under GST, so on and so forth. Now, what I did was, there are some popular definitions which may come up, that goods are defined under Constitution. Goods are defined inclusively to mean that goods includes material, commodities and articles as far as Constitution is concerned. Sale of Goods Act defines goods to mean every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money. So they are trying to exclude money, and include stocks and shares. So stocks and shares are included, securities are included, growing crops, grass or thing attached thereto. GST Acts defined goods to mean every kind of movable property other than money and securities. So GST excludes securities from levy, but includes so on and so forth. Therefore, what end result one comes up is that there is no uniformity as far as the definition of goods under any of the sister legislature or any of the allied laws. So what do? We may have to go to a judge-made guidance or a judge-made attributes which court regards that should be essential as far as goods is concerned. Two decisions, TCS decision and Southern Petrochemical, echoes the same philosophy or same attributes of goods. Both the decisions stated that a goods may be a tangible or an intangible one. It becomes good provided it has following attributes, and these are the attributes of goods. Is it of utility? That is it of use between two people? Is it capable of being bought and sold? Is it capable of being transmitted, transferred, delivered, stored, and possessed? If answer is yes, then you meet the attributes of goods. If answer is no, then you don't meet the attributes of goods. Let us spend some time on this and look at whether first services per se are included as part of goods or not. Now, when we look at this, is service a utility? Answer is yes. A chartered accountant advice has some utility as far as its end result to the client is concerned. Can it be bought and sold? Bought and sold may be a too rudimentary word, but at least it is capable of being rendered. Therefore, appears that clause B may not be satisfied. Can it be transmitted? Can a person's service be transmitted? No, you deliver that service, you render that service. Can it be stored? Can a doctor's service of advising a particular medicine be stored? Answer is no. Can it be possessed? Answer is no. Can it be transferred? Answer is no, because services can be rendered. So to begin with, services does not meet the definition of goods. Even under various provisions of Income Tax Act, which is there before your screen, goods and services has been used consciously by the Income Tax Act differently. 1048 says any goods or rendering of services. As SDT provision, which is 92B, says transfer of goods or services. Therefore, as and when law wanted to differentiate or mention services, it's mentioned it separately. Simpliciter mention in goods does not mean that provisions of TCS should be applicable on services. Then therefore, what are the limbs on which this provision should be applicable? One has to go to the judgment law in terms of TCS, which we mentioned. The TCS provision mentioned that or the TCS decision says, is it of utility? Is it capable of being sold? Is it something which can be transferred, stored, delivered, so on and so forth? Now, therefore, when we look at the provision, first question arises is then what is the meaning of software? Now, before we come to the goods, etc., there is a bit of leeway which is given that if the provisions are subject matter of TDS, that is, if the buyer in any case is withholding taxes, I don't want you to levy TCS, so there would be no duplicated levy. Preference would be given to TDS provision. TCS provisions would be subsequent. Now let us look at the case of software where the feature is very, very peculiar. Now when a person is selling software, first whether it is goods, answer is yes, it is stored. It is possible to be stored, delivered, transferred. It can be stored now in hard disk, earlier in days floppy disk or CD, so on and so forth. But clearly software appears to meet the definition of goods. Now here there is a significant ambiguity, because when you look at the way in which the royalty definition is worded under the Act, if there is a buy and sale of software, law says that this amounts to royalty. There is a subsequent notification which says that if the first level producer or the first level so-called manufacturer of software or the producer of software sells to the distributor, then there would be no TDS levy, because there is a notification which exempts. From distributor to sub-distributor, again no TDS levy. Say from a country distributor to a regional distributor, no TDS levy. From regional distributor to the retailer, again no TDS, because the notification exempts it. But when the final distributor or the retailer sells to the customer, there is a TDS levy which is there. What does this mean? That entire chain, which was earlier exempted, would now be impacted by the TCS provision. Now, this means that when the first level sells to second, in addition to sale consideration, 0.075% TCS has to be collected. So therefore, software one is to see who is your buyer, who is the seller, whether TDS is deducted or not deducted. Even cases like electricity, gas, water, all of them meets the attributes of goods. So therefore, you may see TCS levy which would be applicable. One question which may arise is that, okay, this is cases of gas, electricity, water. 50 lakhs is a fairly big threshold. Now, if such is the case, you may be right. Certain institutional kind of buyers may be subject to TCS, but it's not as if that we as retailers who are consuming this electricity may be out, because one does not know how to compute 50 lakhs. Why? Take a case of electricity, gas, water, etc. Now it is generally given the bill is in the name of society. In Mumbai or in a lot of places, so there is no conveyance, etc. which is done. So builder name may still be appearing, PAN of builder would be appearing. In that case, as far as those sellers are concerned, their party to whom they are invoicing may be those particular entities. So because 50 lakh threshold may be crossed, and it is easily possible to cross a 50 lakh threshold in a decent sized society, TCS would be levied. So while the individual people who would be the society or would be the flat owner will bear the additional brunt of 0.75%, but they will not get any credit of taxes because the PAN of builder is appearing. For builder, there would be a separate question which will come up that, oh, now in my 26 years, there is a purchase which is coming. What do I do with it? Should I claim credit of it or I don't claim credit of it? Some adventurous officer may say that, oh, this is nothing but a bogus purchase which is there. It is not recorded in your books of accounts and now I want to levy penalty. Host of issues are likely to come. Suffice to say, one will witness significant turbulence in times to come. Let us move forward. There may also be certain technologies which may be subject to TCS, certain space segment capacity. So therefore, if an internet moves from one fiber optic distributor to another, it is possible that it may be subject to TCS provision and certain additional levy may be there. As far as services are concerned, say cellular services, of course it is goods. You can't store this electromagnetic waves through which we get the Jio, Airtel or Vodafone network, so on and so forth. Therefore, it is services and still not subject matter of TCS as far as goods are concerned. So suffice to say that is a significant ambiguity. Next is when there is composite sale, that is there. Take a case of AMC. Now, in an AMC contract, there may be certain goods which would be sold and there may be service element as well. Let's take a case of institutional buyers, not retailers, because 50 lakhs is fairly a large threshold to be achieved. Now, in that case, question will come whether TCS is applicable or whether these are services. First indicator is that if the buyer is deducting TDS, then there is a significant problem which is getting solved. If not, one has to really go into the substance of the contract, whether what is the predominant purpose, what is the intention of the parties. If the intention of the parties is to render service and small amount is being used as goods, where the intention is of service, but small amounts of goods have also gone into it. In that case, it would be a contract of service and not that of goods. However, if take a case of say an automobile service center and say I am having a service contract, say for institutional, say corporates are my client. In that case, I have to be very clear whether the goods are part of the services, certain oils, etc., which they use, or there is certain additional. Yeah, it's some background noise, but okay. Okay, now. But if it is something where certain additional goods are sold, which is not customary as part of the, there is some noise in the background. I don't know, but the organizers will just check. Whoever is not there, he may just mute those persons. Yeah,
request everyone to please mute yourself.
Yeah. Coming back, if there is a composite contract, one may take certain guidance from decisions which were predominant, where debate was under 194C, that is when one gets certain work done from a particular contractor. The question was whether it is sale or a work contract, and certain judgment Supreme Court decision have guided. In sum and substance, the entire philosophy runs as to what is then the predominant object of the particular transaction. If it is service, then good it is cannot be goods. In GST also there is some principal supply concept which also resonates largely similar. Therefore, both the law will have to be reconciled and married with each other to come out to the conclusion whether the TCS provisions are applicable or these are not applicable. Now, this is the starting point, friends. Once I come to the conclusion that it is not good, I will not levy TCS. If tax officer is of opinion that no TCS provisions are applicable, what will he do? He will say, I will recover all the TCS which is applicable on entire sales at 0.075%, as also levy interest at 1.5%. Now, friends, this is not normal TDS provision where there are limited vendors which are there. Now, when I look at my sales side, there can be numerous vendors which are there. Of course, there is law which says that why don't you get a certificate from your purchaser that you have paid tax on this, you have filed your return, and if these requirements are met, then I will not deem you to be an assessing default as far as principal amount is concerned. Only to the extent of interest amount you will have to pay this particular tax. In a practical situation, once you go wrong on this decision, whether you are selling is goods or not, it is extremely difficult then to go to each of your buyer and get this kind of certificates. Perhaps at the end result, depending upon the quantum, one may take a call that why don't we then pay this amount and move forward, because at the end of the day it is 0.075%. But friends, you are not saved at that point, because then comes is the new animal, which is prosecution. Now, prosecution has been used in the sense in which perhaps a traffic police gives a particular pink slip that you have crossed the red signal, why don't you pay penalty? So one may witness this kind of provisions that, oh, TCS was not paid in time, I would like to prosecute you as well. So the difficult times ahead, much has to be told to the government that provision which has certain intentions could otherwise be met, maybe through GST mechanism. In your own tax audit, there was a clause which required us, that is chartered accountants, to certify that there is a reconciliation of GST with the sales which are there in the books of accounts. Of course, 2 years it has been postponed, great enough. But there is still sufficient mechanism which is there as far as you as legislature is concerned. Don't boggle a simple honest taxpayer into this kind of compliance burden. One equally does not know as far as chartered accountant is concerned as to how will we comply with this law, whether the data which we want will move in the right client. And at the end of the day, the question will always come, because a client may point at you saying that you could have asked for more data, you could have looked at the data. What I don't like is the notices which are being issued by the tax authority. Difficult time across the board for everybody. Next is the very crucial part, is then what is then the meaning of this word consideration. Now, friend, TCS is provisions are applicable when the seller receives any amount as consideration for sale of goods. Now, when any person receives consideration for sale of goods which exceeds 50 lakhs of rupees. We'll deal with this 50 lakhs in the last part of the presentation, but suffice to say that there is a buyer who in aggregate in a particular financial year purchases of goods more than 50 lakh. Whenever that 50 lakh threshold is exceeded, you will have to apply TCS at 0.075%. Of course, the words used are amount as consideration for sale of goods, and therefore this amount would also include constructive receipts. So if there is a set off which takes place where a buyer and a seller sets off intercompany receivable payable, it would still amount to receipt, and still TCS provisions would be triggered. Of course, reference is to amount as of consideration, but amount is wide enough. So if there is any consideration which is exchanged in kind for whatever reasons, even then TCS provisions would be applicable. Consideration has to be for sale of the goods. Therefore, if it is received anything other than sale of the goods, a view exists that TCS should not apply. Take a case of certain scrap, and scrap is not subject to TCS. And scrap, which are not some noise in.
Okay.
Yeah, muting himself. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now, if what is being sold is which is other than goods, say take a case of machinery which is being sold, ideally TCS provision should not apply, but conservatively if someone wants to apply, it is a separate thing. It is something which is not scrap, because if it is scrap, then definitely there is a direct provision of TCS which is applicable. But what we are dealing with is those things which are other than something which are not goods in terms of business proper. Disposal of certain old machineries, disposal of old furniture. In that case, a view exists that it is not sale of goods. Goods means something with which I am dealing as part of my business proper. In that case, TCS provision should not be applicable. Of course, when I compute 50 lakhs of limit, then and sale consideration, it is an all-inclusive term. Therefore, it would include my freight, it would include my insurance, loading, unloading, transportation charges, so on and so forth. Therefore, TCS has to be applied on that entire amount. It is not just the consideration which goes to my pocket, but it is the consideration which one has to apply on an overall gross basis. Now, the first question which comes is that what do I do with this GST? Now, there is, take a case where say 1 crore is the overall sales price, 18% is the GST. Question for us is whether TCS should be applicable even on GST component or should not be applicable on GST component. There are two views of the matter. We take both the sides and then we somehow come to what is then the view which one should practically take. One view is that GST should not be applicable. Why? Because the provision applies on amount which is received as consideration for sale of goods. Now, GST is an incident of law. It can't be the consideration for sale of goods. Consideration is something which goes into the pocket of the seller. It can't be something which is a statutory levy. In context of TDS provision, the law clarified that TDS should not be applicable on GST component. It should only be applicable on the base amount. So same logic should also be applicable in context of TCS as well, persuasively. Second, there is a GST circular. Now, there was a confusion in GST levy where earlier circular stated that GST should also be applicable on TCS component. Then subsequently, another circular was released where they stated that no, GST should not be applicable on TCS component. In that circular, they quoted certain views of CBDT, and their CBDT opined that TCS is an interim levy on possible income arising from sale of goods by the buyer and has to be adjusted against his final tax liability. Now, if TCS is an interim levy on income, then GST is never my income. It is only a role which I have to do as an agent when I'm collecting and paying the same through the exchequer, and therefore this argument suggests that TCS should not be levied on GST. That is, in the example concerned, TCS should be only on 1 crore. But at the same time, there are arguments and there are decisions in context of excise law which stated that so far as purchaser is concerned, he pays the goods what the seller demands, that is price, even though it may include tax. That is, the whole consideration for sale of the goods should be included as meaning of consideration. Another decision, amount of sales tax, even though shown separately in the transaction as sales tax, is still part of consideration. So this decision somehow gives an indication that indirect tax which you levy is still part of consideration. A direct circular of CBDT 5 also says something like this, that excise duty paid or payable by the buyer will also form part of purchase price. Thus, income tax have to be collected at source under 206C by all person with reference to the purchase price including excise. Now, if the circulars are so clear, and there are other FAQs on income tax website as well, which resonates the same thing, then in that case, a better view is to include the GST component, that is 118 in our example, and on that to add to collect TCS as 0.075%. The next question which comes from okay. The next question which comes for consideration at this moment is that what is then the trigger of this TCS? When should the TCS be paid? Let us look at the wording. Let us look at the plain language first. TCS is applicable when a person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of any goods. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on. Fine. All right. Now these are the way in which the provision is worded. That 2061 said every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of any goods for a value exceeding 50 lakhs shall at the time of receipt of such consideration collect from the buyer a sum equal to 0.1% of sale consideration. Then law defines buyer, law defines seller. We'll come to this definition again. Now there are three requisites which are there. Prerequisites that there has to be a seller, and seller is defined here to mean any person in respect of which whose sales gross receipt turnover from the business exceeds 10 crore in the financial year in which sale of goods is carried out. This word sale of goods is carried out is extremely important. We'll time and again come back to this slide. Therefore, there are three requirements. A, there has to be sale of goods. B, there has to be a buyer. And C, there has to be receipt of consideration. Now, if I contrast this with some other provisions of 206C, 1A, 1C1, there this is seller has to collect TCS at the time of debit of account of the buyer or at the time of receipt, whichever is earlier. This is so-called an accrual-based method, where under accrual basis, if accrual is earlier than receipt, then even on accrual basis, you need to pay this particular amount. When you contrast this with the wordings of 206C1H, they say buyer at the time of receipt of the consideration, receipt of such amount, collect from the buyer a 0.1%. This indicates that this is somewhere what is known to be a cash basis of payment of TCS. When you receive, you pay. Therefore, if you have invoiced today, but your customer pays after 90 days, then after 90 days, you collect it and pay to the government. Now, if this view is taken, there will be significant problems which would arise. Because experience suggests that our department, and I believe this is yet not faceless, but our TDS wing will tell you that why don't you reconcile the amount which is reflected in part of your TCS return with the GST return. Why don't you reconcile the same with the turnover which is appearing in the books of account and tell me invoice wise that when did you bill the amount for GST purposes, book the amount for books of account, when did you receive it, because I would like to ensure that nothing is missed. Therefore, cash basis is likely to give rise to significant problems. In a case which is driven by SAP, where my sales items are numerous, in that case, to have a practical reconciliation appears to be extremely difficult. Even if one is doing on Excel beyond 10 lakhs, beyond 1 lakh of 10 lakhs of line item, your sheet will get hanged. Therefore, it is extremely difficult manually even to analyze and to come with a view that this amount, this Excel sheet, I would be able to explain to the TDS officer to his satisfaction. Now, SAP may not give you this kind of data readily. Plus, as far as buyer is concerned, he gets the credit the moment this amount is paid. Therefore, practically, one would like to take a view, even though plain language of law says that it is at the time of receipt. Practically, if one takes a view at the time of invoicing only, you levy TCS and pay it to the government, because TCS is same as TDS. You have to pay this amount 7th of subsequent month, and on a quarterly basis, you need to file your returns. So if one goes on a simple basis, which is invoicing based basis, then it would be easy to comply with this law rather than going on the true reading and reading the law in true spirit and then paying the amount to the government. Even Article 265 of the Constitution prohibits government to receive the amount ahead of time. It does not prohibit the payer to give the amount ahead of time. Say, take a case of an advance tax. Now, there are 4 installments, but nothing prohibits me if I want to pay entire tax in my Q1. If I want to pay entire tax in Q1, I can very well pay it. So here, if one has to balance the true reading vis-a-vis the practical challenges which may arise, one may take this view to book or to pay the TCS on a basis. You are in any case paying GST. Your software will add one more node as TCS levy, and basis of that you may like to comply with this provision on accrual basis. any question, you guys may just put it on the chat box so that when it comes, we can address it. Yeah. The next question comes is that now when you read the law literally, it is at the time of receipt of consideration. Now, if it is at the time of receipt of sale consideration, question arises is that how do we deal with advance? Now, take a case where I am receiving 1 crore is my overall sales price. I am receiving advance in the month of October, say 50 lakhs, and at the time when I deliver my goods in the month of December, I will get the balance 50. So the question comes up is that whether TCS would be applicable at the time of receipt of advance or when the final delivery takes place. Now, friends, again, I'm going back to the definition. Look at the words which are highlighted in red. That there has to be a seller. Seller in turn is defined to mean the person in respect of which the sale of goods is carried out. Sale of goods again resonates in the main provision, which is any amount as consideration for sale of any goods. Now, one cardinal principle of interpretation is that when it comes to sale of goods, it is a nomen juris. Now, what do we mean by nomen juris? Whatever is the meaning which is given in the Sale of Goods Act, because there is a specific legislature dealing with Sale of Goods Act, that meaning would be the relevant meaning when we analyze this under this meaning of these provisions under any other statute. Applying the same principle, what happens when there is a case of advance? Sale of Goods Act under section 4 subsection 3 reads something like this: that where under a contract of sale, the property in the goods is transferred from seller to buyer, the contract is called a sale. So only when the property of the goods is transferred from seller to buyer, it is sale. But where transfer of property in the goods is to take place at future time or subject to certain condition, it is an agreement to sale. Therefore, in advance, when I am only receiving advance, it is only an amount. It does not partake the character of consideration for sale of goods, because I need to go back to my mother legislature, which is Sale of Goods Act. It says that only when the property in the goods is being transferred, it is at that point when you can call it a sale of goods. Otherwise, it is agreement to sale. In fact, it is possible that goods may not even be manufactured, or goods may not be attributed or identified or earmarked for the buyer. In that case, the event of sale has not taken place. Therefore, when I go back to the main provisions, when it comes to advance, it is only an amount received for sale of goods. It does not partake the character of consideration for sale of goods. Some of the leading decisions on this topic: if the transfer is in present t, that is, the transfer is today, it is called sale. But if the transfer is to take place at future time and subject to certain condition, it is an agreement to sale. When the time in the agreement to sell lapses or conditions subject to the property or transfer are fulfilled, only then agreement to sale becomes sale. Essential feature, what Khurana Brothers says, which distinguish contract for sale from an agreement to sale, is that in the contract of sale, the property in the goods is being transferred from seller to buyer immediately, whereas in agreement to sale, the property is transferred on future date. Therefore, if jurisprudence of Sale of Goods Act is given any relevance, in that case there should not be any TCS trigger, because that is only an amount which you have received. It does not partake the character of consideration for sale of goods. Now, once you receive the amount, that is, once we reach the month of December, once we reach the month of December, when actually my title to the goods have transferred, I generate invoice. At that point, that amount partakes the character for consideration of sale of goods, and therefore, qua the amount which is received as advance, there is no doubt that TCS has to apply. For balance amount, as and when I receive, if it is further credit days are given, in that case, a view has to be taken whether one follows an accrual-based method or one follows a cash-based method as far as TCS is concerned. In sum and substance, if my view has any relevance, then it is the month of December when I generate invoice. TCS should be applicable on entire amount. I am aware that there are some CBDT circular where TCS is also applicable on sale of car, where court or where CBDT has opined that when you receive the advance, TCS should be paid.
But that circular can be subject matter of significant challenge because the concepts of nomen juris, concept of sale of goods, etc. has not been considered. So it does not represent the correct view of the matter. So this was more on advances concern. Second comes is that what do we do of sales return? Because it is a normal practice. If it is an FMCG goods or say a drug manufacturer or a pharma company, then sale return is a normal incidence of business. To which the question arises, what do we do? Again, we go back to the parent legislature, which is Sale of Goods Act, where they stipulate what happens in case of sale of goods. When the goods are delivered to the buyer on approval or on return basis, then law says that property therein passes to the buyer only when he signifies his approval or acceptance of the goods or does any act or other act adopting the transaction. If it does not signify, then after elapse of reasonable time frame. Certain commentary, Polla and Mullock have tried to explain this particular concept as follows. A delivery of goods on approval or what is called sale of return might have been held to pass the property subject to the condition that it should revest in the former owner if the optional buyer returns the goods within the prescribed time. But it is an accepted rules which is adopted by the Act is that in such a case there is no complete sale. Therefore, what law says is that when the custom of trade is such or when the agreement between buyer and seller is such that if you are not able to sell the goods, if the expiry date of your goods if the goods have met the expiry date or they become perishable, so on and so forth, then the question comes is that it does not amount to sale. Because there is no sale, ideally TCS should not be leviable on those cases. But what happens is that TCS is not an annual compliance where one can have a fair bit of visibility. Here the law is parallel to TDS. At the end of the month, you compute what was the sales which you made, and on 7th of subsequent month, you have to pay this particular amount. On quarterly basis, you need to file this particular return. So if someone wants to comply the law in tooth and substance, then he will have to amend his return of income or maybe adjust that amount paid as TCS against any other liability for coming months. But if practically one looks at the provision, then to amend the return, etc., would have significant onerous compliances. The actual levy is only 0.075%. Once you deposit this amount, buyer is going to get credit. Therefore, if practical considerations are given weightage, in that case, we are seeing a lot of people taking a view, a lot of businesses taking a view that we will, once goods sold, TCS amount will not be returned. If you have paid us, we will try to adjust it to debit note and credit note. But as far as TCS is concerned, once we book the invoice, that amount is freezed. And perhaps given that quantum today at least is 0.075%, there may be limited reservations from the buyer because in any case he's going to get credit of that amount paid in his own income tax return. So this was the points on sales return. Technically, yes, sales have not taken place, but practically, depending upon the quantum, considered call has to be taken here. Perhaps people are moving towards the direction of not to revise TCS return and not add more towards the compliance burden, which otherwise is also a Herculean task. Now, friends, this provision are effective from 1st October. Any questions here? We can open the questions and then we deal with the transitional issues. Any questions here? Yeah, okay. One may put it in chat box. So far, there are no questions. One may put it in chat box. Okay, fine, no problem. Now, friends, now these provisions are applicable from 1st October 2020. Now, because these provisions are applicable from 1st October 2020, there are certain transitional issues which are likely to arise. As I stated, because your TCS forms are also notified, appears to be a dim hope that the provisions will be given a go by. In fact, what one is praying is that while till date clarifications has not came in, people have tried to gear themselves up with this new provision. Don't come up with a circular which goes exactly contradictory to what otherwise the popular view or what view industry is otherwise trying to form. Now, because these provisions are applicable from 1st October, that is in between the year, there are certain questions which arises is that whether TCS would be applicable even for goods which are sold, that is invoice booked prior to 1st October 2020, but the consideration is received after 1st October 2020. Second question which comes up is that what do I do of advances? Advance is received prior to 1st October 2020, but sale which is consummated after 1st October 2020, should I levy TCS? How do I determine the threshold of 50 lakhs? Should sales done prior to 1st April 2020 should also be considered or should also not be considered, are some of the questions which one is grappling through. Let us deal with each one of them in some kind of detail. The first question is that what do I do of outstanding receivables which are there on 30th September 2020? Should I raise a separate debit note and tell to the buyers that while you have not paid this, you have got two options. Either you pay me quickly, I will not levy TCS, or if you are delaying or if your payments are delayed after 30th September, I am raising an additional debit note where you will also be required to pay TCS. Now, as I told, there are three ingredients which are there under 206C1H. First, there has to be a sale of goods. Second, there has to be a seller, and seller is defined to mean a person who carries out sale of goods. And third is there has to be a buyer, and buyer is defined to mean the person who purchases the goods. Now, when I look at the sales which are concluded prior to 1st October 2020, in that case, a view is possible that one of the ingredients, which is sale of goods, have not been complied with. It is not a receipt-based taxation. It is a taxation where there are important limbs which are there. Sale of goods, existence of buyer, and receipt of consideration. All the limbs has to be satisfied in totality for charge of TCS to fructify. Now, because when a person receives consideration after 1st October 2020, my charge is not fructified because sale of goods took place prior to 1st October 2020, and therefore merely because I received the amount subsequently does not mean there is a TCS obligation which is there. If I read the law to mean that no, merely because you have received the amount after 1st October 2020, then it would mean that I am reading the law retrospectively. Now, what 265 of the Constitution, and these are defenses, says is that no tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. Now, therefore, when a seller is collecting TCS, he is acting in terms of the authority which otherwise law gives. Now, a seller is in a way here acting on behalf of government to collect. Therefore, if the authority to collect was not there prior to 1st October 2020, then merely because I receive consideration now, that does not mean that I am following 265 in true spirit. Vatika Township, a constitutional bench decision of Supreme Court says, at the same time, it is also mandated that there cannot be imposition of any tax without authority of law. Such a law has to be unambiguous and should prescribe the liability to pay tax in clear terms. If the concerned provision of taxing statute is ambiguous and vague and is susceptible to two interpretation, then interpretation which favors the subject tax against revenue has to be preferred. Therefore, they say that the mandate of the law is very clear. If there is any ambiguity, then go with the taxpayer, go with the subject who is subject of the law, don't go with revenue. And therefore, this also somehow supports that there should not be any levy. Further observation says is that of various rules guiding how a legislature has to be interpreted, one of the established rules is that unless a contrary intention appears, a legislature is presumed not to have intended to have a retrospective effect. The idea behind this rule is that a current law should govern current activities. Law passed today cannot apply to events of past. Therefore, if a view is taken that no, merely because you receive consideration today, then you may go 3 years behind time. If some debtors have paid me after 3 years, or say pursuant to IBC, so on and so forth, even the TCS would be applicable. Now here, the contract between the parties was agreed prior when the law was there. even if there is a statutory obligation to pay TCS, it is still governed by contract between the parties. And under a contract act also, you cannot have an imposition which was never envisaged when two people were dealing with each other. Such imposition will only go to the roots of the contract and will frustrate the contract. Therefore, in my view, if there are outstanding receivables as on 30th September 2020, TCS should not be applicable even on those particular amount. What we will do, friends, here is let's just pause and take a minute break, and then I will start with the presentation again. I hope this is okay. We are just taking a minute break. If people just want to just break for a minute, is it fine? Jigar, is it okay, sir?
Yeah, not an issue.
Just take a minute break and reassemble, minute or couple of minutes, and then we reassemble and go to the next part of the presentation.
Till then, anyone has any doubts can just post their questions in chat box.
Absolutely. Jigar, let me know when should we start.
You can start, sir. There are a few questions, Bhaumik ji. You can pick up now or?
Just going through it. I'm going through it. Yeah, I'm going through it. Okay, there is a practical experience which is shared by one of the participants. The question reads like this. As discussed, TCS is to be collected on GST component. Now, how will one reconcile with the respective trading accounts figure? One will have to face with inquiry to explain facts. And why not to take a view like TDS, not to apply on GST part? Sir, this is well made practically, but there are CBDT circulars, so it's not a view at this moment, at least on GST. But there are circulars, and one I have quoted, and even department FAQs also says similarly that you need to collect TCS from GST part, and hence practically the practical convenience have to be given go by.
Now, if as a subservient answer to this can be like this, that in any case my trading account will reflect an amount which is less than what is disclosed in the GST return. Now, if such is the case, I can at least say that X rupees is the trading amount and balance is attributable to GST when I go vendor wise, and then say this is how the amounts are getting reconciled. Next question comes from another participant, is that in case where buyer pays less or discount is given, what should be the amount of TCS? Now friends, what TCS is to be levied is on the amount of consideration. Now if discount is given as part of the normal business, then the amount of consideration is post discount. It is equally possible that TCS discount, where there are times where invoices are outstanding and one may say that why don't you pay now, pay 5% less, and I may like to just write off or do whatever I want. Even in that case, it is ideally on the net amount, because it is that amount which is agreed and agreed between the buyers and the seller, on which TCS should be levied. If the discount is given on the face of invoice, TCS would also be on net amount, no problem. If it is some kind of a discount which is given for making further payment after my invoice is raised, then in that case, practically to the extent of TCS, it would be raised on a higher amount. Practically, buyer will give less amount, but to the extent of TCS, I need to take full amount because he is in any case going to get credit for this TCS which is deposited. Next question reads, we are charging on invoice charged in March, but payment is received in April, whether the rate is 0.75 or 0.1%. Now, friends, once the view is taken that it is invoice wise, then in that case, receipt of amount has no relevance. Therefore, these questions deal with the next transition which will come between March and April. Today, the loss is 0.075%, but assuming this so-called COVID relief is taken back, then the law will read 0.1%. Then once you have levied it based on invoice at 0.75, receipt of consideration that then has no relevance at all. This view of paying tax on an accrual basis is more favoring to the revenue, because here you will be paying tax ahead of time, ahead of when it is becoming due, and therefore the question deals, this is the answer to that. The next question deals with, in case of agency business, this will apply. I request the participant to just make that question more explicit. If it is a service, then you are not selling the goods, it is your principal who is selling the goods, and therefore to you it does not apply. But if it is some kind of a P2P trading which you have done, then the consideration should be different. Every year 50 lakh exemption is to be given to the buyer. Yes, the question is like this, how do I compute 50 lakhs of limit? The law says only when the buyer, purchases of the buyer exceeds 50 lakh, on that excess amount, whatever be that excess amount, you need to levy TCS as 0.075%. So this would address that question. Next question is whether it applies to work contract. As I told, those composite contract guidance, etc., has to be looked into. If your buyer in any case is deducting tax at 2% on your consideration, you are saved of TCS responsibility. If not, then in works contract, there are two or three concepts, whether it is predominantly service, whether it was predominantly supply of goods where a chattel was passed as chattel, but some small amount of services was involved. Take a case of an air condition installation. Now, if that is the case, the installation service is subservient to sale of air condition. I can't say that it is a case of services which are being rendered. So absolutely fact specific when it comes to work contract. If there is a split which is available between goods and services, perhaps TCS should be applicable on goods component of it. Any further question? Continue it on the chat box. We move ahead with the presentation. Next question comes is on transitional front. If the amount is received prior to 1st October, but goods are delivered after 1st October. Friends, as we discussed, there are three essential requirements: sale of goods, existence of buyer, receipt of consideration. Now, when in case of advance, when I receive the goods today, there is no sale of goods which have taken place. It is an incomplete sale. It was only an agreement to sell. It is only when the title to the goods which is passed, it is at that point when I say the sale of goods have taken place. So exactly on the same reasoning, when I received the advance prior to 1st October, it is not a consideration for sale. It is only when I raise invoice. It is only when I raise invoice after 1st October that the event of sale is fructified, and it is to this event that provisions of TCS are applicable. So next comes is that what do I do with 50 lakhs as a threshold? Now law says like this, that every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of any goods of value or aggregate of value exceeding 50 lakhs in previous year. The question for us is that whether the limit of 50 lakhs gets newly triggered from 1st October, or I should also consider the sales which were made between April and September and find out whether limit of 50 lakhs is crossed. If it is crossed, then starting 1st October, I will start levying TCS on this particular customers. Now, there is some guidance available in terms of circulars. Now, 194J, when it was brought in, was applicable from 1/7/1995. But in a CBDT circular, they said that to compute 20,000 limit, you consider services which was even rendered between April to June. And if such is the case, then you need to consider that services for the purpose of limit, but only start deducting TDS after 1st 7. Same analogy can be applied in context of TCS provision as well. In context of interest, where a bank was required to start deducting TDS on interest, the question there was that while law is applicable from 1st October, CBDT in 617 circular opined that for current years, bank will have to take into account interest paid or credited during the entire period. So even consider aggregate interest paid between April to September, but start deducting TDS only after 1st October 1991. So if the circulars one gives any regard, then in that case for computing 50 lakhs limit, entire sales made between 1st April to 30th September has to be factored. Not only the sales, even GST should ideally be factored. This is where one would believe how far SAP systems or how far the internal tally nodes, etc. can give answers. But ideally, even GST should also be considered as part of sale consideration and should also be factored. And I'm aware that this is likely to give rise to some problems, but whatever is best available from the system, one has to get certain positions and start deducting TCS even on those particular portions. So this was on transitional services. Now let's look at the last part of definitions of buyer and seller. Now buyer is defined to mean any person who purchases the goods. Seller is defined to mean a person whose gross sales turnover in the business exceeds a particular limit. Now friends, shares per se can be considered as goods because it meets all the definition of TCS definition. Does it have utility? Yes. Can it be bought and sold? Yes. Can it be stored, reserved, transferred? Yes. In Demat account, it is stored in many ways. Therefore, yes, ideally TCS provisions are applicable. But when it comes to the seller, considerations differ because for seller, the limit of 10 crores has to be in business. So 10 crores in the business, turnover from the business should be 10 crores. Therefore, if it is somebody like a retailer who is buying shares or selling shares which was otherwise held for investment purposes, say 60 lakhs of Reliance shares being sold by a particular person, because if the shares were held as capital asset, it does not qualify as to be part of the business, and therefore to those people TCS threshold is not applicable. Let's go a step further and look at what happens when a person is a broker. In that case, law requires something like this, that you should know who your buyer is, because buyer means a person who purchases the goods. Law also gives some kind of indication that if you have a permanent account number, 0.1% would be the rate. If you don't have a permanent account number, higher would be the rate. Therefore, law envisages some kind of identity of the buyer and the seller at the time of sale. Therefore, even if a broker sells the goods, sells his stock on the exchange, TCS provisions are not applicable because identity of buyer is not known, and what you get is merely a statement maybe from NSE, CDSL or whoever are your intermediaries. Even if there are certain commodity exchanges also, where after the trade is consummated, I can know the identity of buyer and seller. Even that TCS provision should not be applicable, because at the time when a transaction is being consummated, I don't know who my buyer is. Entire machinery of 2061H breaks, and therefore in such cases also TCS provisions are not applicable. Now TCS provision 2061H excludes exports out of India. So the question arises is, what happens in case of sales made by an SEZ unit? Now SEZ for GST purposes or for other legislature are deemed export. But when we look at, for the purpose of TCS, law requires exports of goods out of India. Now, out of India would mean physical movements of goods out of India. SEZ are deemed to be export for certain legislature, but it would not satisfy the definition of export of goods out of India, and hence in that case TCS provisions are also applicable. Certain procedural aspect, because it is extremely essential even to understand what has to be done at ground. 7th of subsequent month, whatever view a taxpayer takes based on which TCS would be computed and has to be paid. TCS written a very lengthy format. You need to tell who your buyer is, what is his spend, what are the sales which was made, when did you receive the consideration. Perhaps here a practical point has to be taken. If the view is that on accrual basis I am booking, maybe we may just mention accrual basis as receipt of consideration and then move forward. Otherwise it's an extremely lengthy format which law prescribes. If my ERP or Tally is not in a position to give me this kind of information, then one may have to take some practical shortcuts and move ahead with it. Buyer, now we spoke so far in this last 1 hour, 15 or 20 minutes from seller's perspective. Now, these provisions are also applicable from buyer's perspective. That is, if today I am the seller, I may be buying from other people. Now, to them, they also have to make certain tracking. That is, what is the system which my seller is proposing? Is he following accrual or cash basis? If whatever be the system, after me having paid this TCS amount, is he depositing it? Is that amount getting reflected in my 26AS? If it is not reflected in my 26AS, then I will have to start following up with this so-called sellers and ask them that deposit the amount because we would like to take credit. If not, then history tells us that if my 20 some noise. I don't know who is speaking, but mute. Yeah. History tells us that if the TDS is not reflected in 26AS, how much pains it takes to get that amount getting reflected. Yes, today it is 0.075%. A lot of people may just forget that amount and move ahead. But nonetheless, it still represents a tax which is paid to the government. So one will have to be extremely careful. Second is that if the seller, for whatever reason, say 50 lakh threshold, say a view is taken that on GST, I am not going to withhold tax. A view is taken that what am I rendering is not goods, then he would be saddled with what we call to be an AID or an assessing default proceeding. Interest at 2011A would also be recovered. Now, therefore, this is extremely difficult for the simple reason that yes, there are certain escape routes which are there, that you go to the buyer, you take a certificate from his chartered accountant saying that I have filed return of income, I have included these purchases in my return of income, and I have also paid tax on it. Now, this can be extremely burdensome because there can be thousands and thousands of buyers and sellers to a business. Further, in case of running account, if the view is taken that no, I am only following cash basis, it can be extremely difficult to have a one-on-one reconciliation where say goods of 10 crores are sold, my credit limit is 3 crores. In that case, I pay lump sum 7 crores, where FIFO basis of method is followed as far as invoicing recovery is being tested. In that case, it becomes extremely difficult. So one has to be very careful on what view one is following, because all those antecedent procedures, even if you don't pay TCS, prosecution provisions can be set. So this is practical aspects of procedural things. Of course, there is no time limit which is prescribed by law, but Adani, following other decisions also in context of 206 only stated that 4 years is a reasonable time period where you can invoke non-compliance proceeding as far as 206C is concerned. You can't go back beyond 4 years, as a judge-made law is available for us. Next aspects deals with largely if there are any questions, but this was on a bigger basis which I propose to cover. There are some questions which are there and which I will now deal with it. Is outdoor catering services covered? Now, say take a case where I have a catering service and it is easy that my bill can or my invoices can easily exceed 50 lakh. Now there the question has to be asked is it what am I doing is goods or what am I rendering is service? Facts to facts case may differ. If it is merely catering service, then I would still go back to the principles of TCS provisions which are there. TCS provisions or the Supreme Court decision, that does it have just hold. Does it have utility? Answer is yes. Is it capable of being bought and sold? Maybe yes. Is it capable of being transmitted, transferred, delivered, stored, possessed? In a very true shape, this catering is nothing but service. We can't say that it is sale of goods, because when one is so-called rendering, it is not that one is rendering goods to be sold. It is various other aspects which goes into it. But practically, one has to just see which way of the curve one wants to fit in. Consideration may differ. Say take a case of an ITC as a hotel or Marriott as a brand. Now there the price may be per person, but it's not where one is just selling say food. It is about service, it is about ambience, it is too many other things which goes into the making, and therefore view may be taken that it does not amount to TCS. But as I told, practically assessing default, various other things which are there, one may take a conservative view here as well. Next question is limit for calculating turnover of previous year, whether it includes GST. Now here, when the law says seller would mean gross received turnover in the business. Now there GST one may exclude for the purpose of computing 10 crores as turnover. Next question is, will failure to recover TCS money from buyer be allowed as bad debt? Now here, yes, in my view, it is allowed. Section 40A prohibits, 40A3 or something, prohibits tax. Now tax means tax of the assessee. Here, when he is recovering TCS, it is not his own tax, it is the tax of buyer, and hence, in my view, whether bad debt or whether as business expenditure, one can have a technical debate whether one can qualify it under 36(1)(7) or 28. But either way, deduction should be allowable. Technically, the 28 appears to be better rather than 36(1)(7). 36(1)(7) will hedge with 36(2), whether this amount has been taken sales. Answer may be no. So business 28 appears to be much better. Next question is, in cash system of TCS, there will always be difference of amount of income offered and TCS collection, and hence there will be difficult to reconcile. Can we make a represent on this? I think beyond my control, that's for various organizations to take up. What about sale of flats and shops by a builder? Now here, understand that TCS and TDS provisions work separately. So TDS has an upper edge. So if TDS is applicable, TCS is not applicable. For TCS to apply, the threshold is 50 lakhs of rupees. So if the buyer buys more than 50 lakhs of rupees, in that case, TCS is applicable. Similarly, if there is a single person who is buying a flat, if this limit of 50 lakhs exceeds, he has to deduct tax under that 194I or certain provision, I or whatever is that provision, then in that case, TCS will not apply. However, difficulty will come if two people are indeed buying in joint name and consideration also flows jointly. And if a view is taken that no, 40 lakhs each, TDS is not applicable. In that case, if TDS is not applicable, then TCS will apply. In that case, the builder will have to then collect TCS. If we follow a method of charging TCS on invoice, what will happen of goods sold before 1st October but received after 1st? As I told that if it's an invoice based sale, goods are sold prior to 1st October, TCS provision should not be applicable. What I mean is that property in the goods, that is the title and the risk of the goods, have been passed prior to 1st October, that case TCS should not be applicable. What is the penalty for non-collecting TCS? Similar to what do you do with TDS provision, all the provisions of the law will be applicable. So friends, this were some of the questions which I was seeing as part of chat box. Thank you very much for hearing me patiently, and it was a good learning experience. As I told that these provisions are more of a compliance nightmare. Conscious call has to be taken, because one will have to be very clear that if questions are asked to me, how will I satisfy the officer, what documentations I can have. And now this provision touches the roots, which is sales. Now generally TDS touches certain limits, professional services, so on and so forth. So certain line items, rent, professional services, certain salary payment. Now I am attacking the credit side. So virtually my entire profit and loss accounts are would be subject to TDS or TCS provision, and hence not a great provision, likely to lead India a little lower in terms of ease of doing business, not something which would be easy in days and times to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhaumikji. Friends, we still have some time for question and answers. So anyone wants to ask questions, and please put on the chat box. Bhaumikji, there is one question on can we add TCS in invoice?
So, okay. I'll just open the chat box. Can we add TCS on invoice? So law does not mandate, but practically if you have to prove that you are complying with TDS, then it would be better to add this in terms of invoice. Plus GST circular has also made a clarification that GST is not applicable on TCS. So it's not a chicken and egg situation. Advisable to put it on face of invoice only. Of course, your invoice will bear other information that is that the buyer has given you pen. If he has not given you pen, then this is an indication that TCS is to be at higher rate. Second can be that is your buyer an exempt category, then somehow your coding in invoices, your SAP systems may highlight all these things. What about sale and purchase of TDR rights? Extremely difficult question. Yes, it does satisfy somehow definition of goods. Does it have utility? Yes. Can it be transferred? Yes. By agreement you can transfer. Can it be stored? Answer is no, but still you are utilizing it. You can put it in your name. Extremely difficult. Does not apply. 194 TDS is not applicable. Yes. Extremely difficult. Perhaps yes, TCS may be applicable. What is applicable to sale to an SEZ unit and high C sales? Now, import-export is exempt, and hence take a case where I am importing goods. I see only I sold that goods to another my Indian buyer. In that case, yes, TCS is applicable. If it is SEZ selling to another, as I told, this is not export out of India. This is whether TCS is to be charged in bill or separate debit note can be raised. This is addressed. Both approaches are fine. Practically on invoice may be a better approach. Yes. Right, sir.
Any more questions?
If we have catering, I think catering service is coming. I think I did address this. We did discuss catering in detail. Yeah. TDS exemption is transaction wise or person wise. I don't know what is the meaning of TDS exemption. I believe it is 50 lakhs of TCS exemption. It is qua each buyer. Right.
No more questions. We can wind up the session. One more question.
In case sales invoice is raised for purchase return, then whether TCS is applicable. As I told, sales return, and this has been dealt with in the PPT, sales return is not something which results in sales. So there is no sale. Ideally, TCS should not apply. But
The weighing with the law is that every month you have to pay. So if your sales return is in subsequent month and you have already paid TCS to the exchequer, in that case there would be a difficulty. So practical view has to be taken place. TCS on sale of branch in other state. Now TCS requires a buyer, requires a seller. Now this means two separate people, and this is again indicated by law that do you have permanent account number or not. Now one person can have more than one pen, it can't have more than one pen. Therefore interstate transfer, branch depot transfer not subject to TCS. What if cash sales exceed 50 lakhs? Yes, if you know the buyer, his PAN number is available, same buyer, 50 lakhs or more. Yes, and again, this is not proper business to a seller, say a furniture mart. And in that case, he may be selling to somebody who is renovating his house. Then more than 50 lakhs of rupees bill cross, he has to levy TCS. It has nothing to do with what buyer does. It is seller based. All right, I think. What if PAN of the buyer is not available? Loss is deducted at a higher rate. Okay. Yeah.
I think we'll wind up. Thank you, Bhomik ji. Friends, you might be aware that during the lockdown on account of COVID pandemic, a lot of disruption of the activities of taxpayers and chartered accountants, even businessmen, and considering this, the new TCS levy would result in additional cost to sellers for updating the IT systems and implementation and reporting process. And also considering the limit of 50 lakhs, it is possible for them to derive those data from GST returns also. So a lot of ambiguity in bringing TCS at such a time. A lot of representations have also been done for this. Let's hope we have some clarifications from the government very soon. Thank you, Bhomik ji, for sharing your knowledge and at the same time clearing all our doubts and concepts of this TCS on TCS. Though it is a new subject and the way you have given full justice to the subject and covered each and every issues, I thank you on behalf of Dadar CP Study Circle. Now for formal vote of thanks, I'll request Amit Chheda to please take on.
You can circulate the slide, that is okay.
Yeah, thank you, Jigar bhai. Sir, it's an immense pleasure to have an opportunity to extend a hearty vote of thanks on behalf of all. Sir, the last when we heard you on section 56.2.10, that's the time we all must have wished to hear you again. And you're back for this heated topic. Friends, webinar on this topic like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ago. And it requires planning and a bird's eye for the details to be shared. The pains for getting TCS and TDS credits in Form 26AS is proportion to the efforts put in by you, sir. We are really grateful to you for clearing most of our doubts that kept on rolling on WhatsApp. I, on behalf of entire Dadari CP Study Circle, extend a virtual vote of thanks to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhomik ji. Thanks a lot. We hope you see you back soon.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.